2.5-year high on the news. The price of crude closing just under $108 a barrel. That's not sitting well with my next guest, Republican Senator David Vitter, ready to do something about it. Senator, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Stuart. Good to be with you.
I know you've got a bill and you want to drill for more oil offshore. Got it. Now, before we get into that, I want to bring up some of the arguments that your opponents use. They say, look,
Sure.
We can't go back to drilling in the Gulf yet because it's not safe. And you say?
That's ridiculous, Stuart. Look, nobody's been more impacted than Louisiana. I live in coastal Louisiana. We got the brunt of that disaster, and it was a disaster. But we can drill safely. First of all, an event was an anomaly. Secondly, there have been plenty of significant changes and additional safety precautions put in place.
Okay.
So we can create those great American jobs and produce American energy in a safe way.
Second objection. You don't need to drill in the Gulf. You don't need to drill offshore. The oil companies are sitting on millions of acres of oil, leasing land, and they're not doing anything with it. There's plenty of oil, just go get it on land. And you say?
No, Stuart, that's completely bogus. First of all, it's government regulation and lack of permitting that is slowing that process as well, and that's in the bill I introduced yesterday with 28 co-sponsors in the Senate as well. We need to streamline that process. We need to develop more leases, but also once a company has a lease, we need to let them produce. We need to give them the permits to act, and that is very, very difficult under present circumstances and regulations.
They also say, look, we don't need to get oil from the volatile Middle East where there's all this violence at the moment. Why don't we go to Canada and get it? Why don't we go to Brazil and get it? We're planning to do just that. We therefore don't need to go to the Gulf. And you're saying on that one?
Stuart, we can't get all the energy we need from any single location. So all of the above is the right answer, and part of all of the above is increasing domestic production. That's not going to cut our imports to zero. It's not going to cut our Mideast imports to zero, but at least it'll move the line in the right direction.
Okay.
So we need to do more at home.
So your argument, your bill is get out there, get back in the Gulf, and drill the wells which have already been drilled and get the oil out. Is that it?
Yes, and it's not just the Gulf, Stuart. We are the single most energy-rich country on the globe, bar none. The only one who comes close is Russia, who's second. But we're the only energy-rich country that takes 95% of those resources, puts them off limits. We can't afford to do that. It's absolutely ridiculous. We need to open up that access for all sorts of energy, not just in the Gulf, other offshore areas, offshore Alaska, Anwar, onshore Alaska, and Western Shale.
Well, what do you say to the president who says he wants to make America Brazil's best customer? What do you say?
You know, I tell you what, living on the Gulf Coast, I found that trip and that statement deeply, deeply offensive. We sent $2 billion of U.S. taxpayer dollars in an XM loan guarantee to Brazil to develop their offshore industry. He went there and encouraged their development and said, we want to be your best customer. What about being our own best customer first? We can produce American jobs in the Gulf and elsewhere. We can produce American energy. And guess what, Stuart? Every step of the way we do it, we lower our deficit because there's tremendous revenue that comes in from domestic production.
Real fast, have you got the votes?
Not yet, but I tell you what, things are changing in this direction every day. And I would hearken back and compare it to the summer of 2008, when the price at the pump is doing what it did then, what it's doing now, approaching $4. People are refocusing every day, both constituents, Americans all around the country, and then eventually their representatives in Congress.
Senator
Sorry?
$4 gas is a motivator. I'm sorry to cut you off, Senator. I'm flat out of time, but nice to see you, sir.
Thanks, Stuart.